This is in response to an article in the Washington Post on Tuesday, March 17th, 2015 by Jonathan Caprhart, basically where it said, "Hands up, don't shoot, it's a lie." And I will break it down in my thing is Michael Brown was guilty. And the reason why I'd like to make a comment on this today is that I feel as if there was a whole lot of hoopla about that, where a lot of people, including myself, got emotionally involved in the case of Michael Brown, where we knew right from the beginning that there were some truths. The first truth was that Michael Brown was unarmed. Second truth is that he was shot to death in the middle of a street at like 12 o'clock in the morning. And it was a summer day and it was very warm. And his body laid out on the asphalt for hours upon hours. I believe it was 4 or 5 hours. Now, what we found out since then, a lot of things we found out since then, but the basic thing is that we did get a definitive report from the Justice Department last week concerning two things. One was the ineptitude and the racketeering of the city of Ferguson, not only the possibly the mayor's office, but the city manager's office, in cooperation with the city police, were basically using the police force to put money in the coffers of the city of Ferguson. So they were shakedown artists. But that's what it exposed. It also exposed that the types of policing were not very good. But it also opened up a big hole in terms of some things that white people had not really had a great perspective on. And that is that the number of black people who are being killed by police officers, and we have since seen a number of them in the U.S. Who was the one? Eric Gardner, the 12-year-old boy that was shot to death in Cleveland because he had a toy gun. I believe that there was one or two instances, and this is the biggest cases where people who are mentally ill are shot to death by police. There was something I saw today, a video of of a mother that had called the police. They had a picture from the police cam. The mother walked out the door. The son walked behind her. He had a little screwdriver, wasn't even 4 or 5 inches long. They told him to put it down and shot him within 10 seconds. Bang. I don't know if that guy died or not, but it opened up the fact that there has been an exceptional amount of heavy-handedness on the police department, not only in Ferguson, but in many other places in the U.S. Of course, that doesn't tie into the Trayvon Martin thing. That was a completely different thing. But it got back to the point that if you had a gun and you shot somebody and you said that they were at fault, your word was taken. And of course, that was one of the things that was discussed very much right at the beginning of the Michael Brown case, was that the laws are very well written to protect the police officers, and the police officers have a right to inflict bodily harm if they feel that they are being not victimized, but they feel that their life is being threatened. And what I'm trying to say about the hoopla about all this, it was easy to get caught into the fact that there were a lot of things that were going on, but I think the biggest thing is that there was a lot of things said right at the beginning that we now know were completely false. And the biggest one was by the gentleman who was with Michael Brown, who made a lot of the statements, especially the hands up. We said he had his hands up, and that person was an excessive exaggerator, so to speak, and a lot of us took a lot to heart. And I think my big thing about this, not that I'm disappointed in the whole thing, but there were a couple things. There was a lot of reports on a lot of the liberal channels and the liberal publications, especially about how any prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich if they want, but Darren Wilson was never indicted. He was never indicted by the St. Louis County. I believe that was where it was. And he wasn't indicted by the feds. So they looked at a lot of stuff. The feds probably had access to a lot more forensic evidence. And the thing that I thought about the most at the beginning was it possible for someone like Darren Wilson to actually grab Michael Brown and pull him inside the vehicle. And that was a hard thing to grasp the whole time. So I knew that if they could prove that Michael Brown, went in on his own to grab him as opposed to being pulled in, then Michael Brown would have definitely been at fault. And these are things that we never could have known at that particular point in time. And I think we've come to a point where now we know that, number one, the laws need to be changed in a lot of areas, that the police shouldn't have the legal authority to gun people down as much as they should. The feds got involved in terms of Ferguson, but there are hundreds of cities, if not thousands of cities, similar to Ferguson across the country. I'm not saying that they're all shakedown orders. I'm not saying that they're racketeering, but their police departments have a great deal of leeway in terms of what type of legal authority they can do. And, my hope is that as I said, there were two reports. One was on the Michael Brown case. The other was on the Ferguson City and Police Department. And I hope that the things and the corrections that are being recommended by the federal authorities in the Justice Department in the Ferguson City and Police Department, those are the things that can take hold. Those are the things that we need to change. They need to change as soon as possible. And let's even though Michael Brown, it appears, was guilty in this whole thing, let's hope that what came out of all that will be good for the United States as a whole and for young black men also.